I just took a picture.
George? I can't remember. Anyway. Sam says, I warned you enough times. And all of a sudden, he went to swing at Sam. Sam grabbed that wrist and just held him. And he couldn't move. His arms, just like Frank Miliano, his arms are strong. And I looked at him and I said, how'd you get that strong, Sam? He says, carrying all these boxes around all day long. I'm using my arms all the time. I've been doing it for years. My arms are all muscle. He got nothing in it, He said, I got no muscle here, but I got it in my arms.
Okay, I'm just getting closer so we can hear you better.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm already recording.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So, where do we start? I don't know. You just tell me.
I gotta have a drink too.
The PBS broadcasting system.
Okay, pausing for a moment.
The more that I had put inside, it made a better sound.
Outtakes.
The more I think about
Outtakes.
things and
Miliano outtakes. Mother, I'm looking at you.
on and start getting carried away and start talking about my
You almost
father
got up faster than me. That was good.
Pause. Okay, now I got it. Now I got it. All right. Yeah, this is definitely not
And,
professional. Go ahead. Grandpa Miliano was born.
was not born in Palermo.
Okay,
He was born in Sicily.
in Sicily.
He was born in a small town outside of Palermo. And I've got the actual name somewhere in the files here. But I can't remember for sure. But the only one person that is alive today that still knows the name of the town is Betty Candela.
Okay.
Now, who's Betty Candela? Well, we have to take 2 steps farther backwards. When your grandpa was born, his parents were not married. His mother worked as a housekeeper for the family. And they didn't want to keep him. So they thought it would be better at that time that he be given away to a different family to maintain and watch over him and take care of him, which is a good idea. And that family that stepped forward, his last name was Candela. And although I'd never met any of these people, of course, they took very good care of my father, and they raised him like one of their own children. And they had several boys. There's a few on the wall up there. Your grandpa's on the left, and then 2 of his brothers, or stepbrothers, what they were called. And one was in the military in the center, and the one on the right was just a civilian working the area and all. So working wherever he could, obtained it. So.
It's Grandpa on the left
Yeah.
and his other 2 stepbrothers. Okay.
So when he came here, he decided that he was going to come to the States. And everybody was coming to the States to work. The wartime was coming on, and nobody wanted to be in a war. And Grandpa, like he always used to say, I'm the biggest chicken around. I don't want to go fight nobody. I'm afraid I'd get killed. He didn't want to do that. But, and so therefore he jumped in the boat, got his packed things together and everything else, and getting ready to leave. And lo and behold, about a week, I think it was about a week, maybe 2 weeks before he was set to leave aboard the ship, his real father and real mother came to see him and find him and wanted him to come back and live with them.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
He said, you waited too long. You know, he says, this is my mother and father here. I'm not going to change my name. He said, what's my name, real name? And that's when he found out his real name was not Candela, but the family's name like he brought up with, but it was Miliano. And they actually named him Levi. Well, he carried the name Levi with Candela. Yeah. And through all the years, he kept getting involved in more things, and as time progressed, depression set in, and in the meantime, Grandma came over, and he was working all over trying to find a job, full-time job, a steady job, and having a heck of a time as everybody was. But he met Grandma through her cousin. Now, her cousin's husband worked at the factory where your grandpa worked. That was at Case factory in Racine. And this one day, he came up and he said to Grandpa, I want you to come to my house. I want you to meet a girl from Italy. And he said, you know, where is she from? What's she from? Well, he says it's a long story. I'll tell you about it after a while. So lo and behold, Grandma was staying with her cousin in a small town outside of Racine called Sturtevant. And it was the Celeste with the last name of the family, and the Celeste family is still
That's
active.
where the Celeste came from.
Huh?
I remember hearing that last name, but I wasn't sure
Yeah.
where it fit in. Okay.
And he and the cousin Celeste, the father, very, very close people, very close friends they got to be. And they used to go mushroom hunting and all kinds of stuff, you know, get together on Sunday afternoons, and I had gotten a car by that time, and well, not by that time. As years went by, I got a car, and then I'd take him out there and leave him in the afternoon, and then Sunday afternoon I'd go do what I want to do, and I'd come back in the evening, pick him up, and bring him home, and they had a beautiful time with these people. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here. So when Grandpa saw this woman, who had then turned to be your grandmother, or my mother, then he asked him, what was his last name? Marco was a son. Junior, another son. Can't think of the father's name. But he told him that your grandma was bought and was sent for by a man in Wisconsin, in the United States, that wanted to marry her. And he sent $500 to Italy to my grandpa on Grandma Miliano's side to get married. And when she got here, she saw this old man with a big old beard, and she was really young. She was in her late teens, or well, she had just become legal, so that's where the mix-up is. If everybody has talked to you about her having a birthday in July and another one in June, and which one is which, but what they did in the papers, she came there and she was too young. She had to wait those extra years, the extra months to July, so they switched her birthday back to June. And that's what we celebrate. We didn't know which one we were celebrating. We just celebrated the birthday. But she changed her birthday on the papers so that she would be legally here and everything fine. But she didn't want to marry this old man. He said, you know what? He's too old. He's dirty. He stinks. You know, he smells like all the tobacco chewing and all written down in his beard and everything else. And she was telling me this one day. She said, I couldn't take that. Not good for me. But then she met Grandpa, and they hit it off real well. And he says, "Want to be married?" Yes, okay, everything's fine. He's set to go. Now he's got a problem. He's got to pay this man $500. He didn't have no $500. He didn't have $100. He didn't have $50. He didn't have any money. He was working in the factory, and every bit he had just exist. But he'd been borrowed $500 from his brother, who had come over here earlier, who was another one of the stepbrothers, Frank Candela. And not the Frank Candela that just died, but Frank Candela our cousin Frank Candela, his father, or
Okay.
Uncle Frank, he lent them the money. And I go off on a little tangent here again. Grandpa started paying him back as best he could. $1 a week, $1 a month, $2, $4, $5. He had enough for 100, 200, 300 to pay it all off, one time. And this caused a little friction between the two of them all those years because he was wanting his money back and Grandpa didn't have it to get the money back, He just had just enough money to take care of his family and feed them. And every once in a while you get a little extra working overtime or something, and he said he used to pay him a little bit the best he could. But he actually didn't finally get paid off until World War II began, when they started working overshift at the factories and all.
Okay.
That's when they finally paid the rest of the money off. That's a long time. How many years is that? I can't even think. You can't even count it. Plus the fact that Uncle Frank and Grandpa never got along in Italy. They used to fight all the time. Always fighting, always fighting. And Uncle Frank had the upper room because he was a real son and Grandpa was a stepson. But they came here to the States and he went to fight one time, and Grandpa, like I told you earlier, his arms strong. He picked these barrels, 50-gallon drum barrels, wooden ones, and walked the stairs with them, carrying it. And he told Frank, he said, "No more. You don't touch me no more. Because you're going to die if you hit me again. It's all over. We're over here in the United States. We changed everything. The rules all changed now." And from then on, the two of them never saw eye to eye on anything. And one Christmas morning, Grandma had cooked a big meal and had it all ready for us. And I was real young at the time. Maybe I wasn't even born. I don't know. But he came over, Uncle Frank came over and said to Grandpa, "Come on, bring your family, come to my house and eat." He says, "My wife has got the dinner cooking. The table's all set, my family's ready to eat. You want me to come now and eat?" He said, "Well, why didn't you call me yesterday?" And that just added to friction, it just... So Uncle Frank died fairly young. I don't remember. Well, I was not driving. No. I was driving already when he died. But I went to the funeral, took Grandpa to the funeral, we had it all done. But that's why the Candelas and the Milianos and Racine never really got together, because Grandpa did not push it, and Uncle Frank didn't push it. And we didn't know what was going on. Grandpa finally told me all this, years later. But by that time, it's, so many things had gone wrong, gone bad, and everything else. And that's how when my cousin Frank, when he died, I said, I never got to know the man. He was my cousin, some nice guy. Everybody told me what a nice guy he was. But I never really, only been with him maybe on 2 different occasions to speak of. One when we took a trip to Fond du Lac, and that's another story in my life. And another time when we were at a wedding, and we kind of hung together that day. But we never got together. My sisters and my cousins, Betty and Evelyn. Evelyn was my age. She went to school with your mother at St. Catherine's. But they didn't know each other. They probably knew each other, but they didn't realize we were going to end up being married. And so then, of course, then there's Edith Candela. So then there's Ackline. And Ackline, there's another story. Ackline had the same mother.
Just a moment, please.
Hurry.
I'm still recording.
Okay.
She's still
So-
recording.
You can keep going.
Yeah. So Uncle you can't remember now. Where was I at?
You were,
Adeline.
I got,
Just a second.
Got derailed.
Oh,
Oh, pause. Okay. All right, here we go. Recording again.
alright, the oldest daughter in the Cadella family was Aquiline. Aquiline was a Tita Conchetta, and my aunt Conchetta. That was her daughter from the previous marriage. So, you know, it's a little bit involved there, but nothing serious. But none of it. When we'd see each other at a wedding or something, a reception, you know, everything was fine. We laughed, talked, joked, but it never went any further. You know, it never went any further. And after Frank died, just the last couple of months now, I've been making contact with Betty, because Betty is now the oldest living one, and there's Edith DeQuisto, who still lives in Racine. His husband's name is Chuck. And but I've been talking to Betty, and she seems a little bit more relaxed now talking to me, and I feel much better when finally starting to get some kind of connection with the family. Because yes, no, it's not really. Yes, it is really, because I've known them for years, and I just felt it was bad that the two fathers didn't get along, two brothers didn't get along, and it passed on down to our generations. It wasn't right. I always felt it wasn't right. But that's the way those things go. You know. The best things that you have, sometimes you don't really have them, or when you have them, you don't really see it, don't really realize you have them.
Well, that's right.
And then you lose track, and then when it's too late, you say, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, when I talked to Betty, I said, I am going to do this, I am going to, and I've talked to her on the phone several times. And she's real receptive to my phone calls, but she's like so many other people up in the age. They say, "Yeah, I'll call you back," and they just don't call back. You know, just, not that they are very sarcastic, right? They're just like that. And like your mother won't call people very often, just talk. Oh wait, call him once in a while. Call him never. If I go to call him, he doesn't get a call. She'll be laying here. Why don't you call Joe? Here's the phone. He shoves it across it, you know.
She doesn't call me unless I go like 2 weeks and I'm really being bad.
Yeah.
But time flies for me. I just lose track. But I think about you guys every day.
That's, you know.
I'm an evil child sometimes.
That's the way it is.
Excuse me.
But anyway, they got married, and my grandpa got married, and grandpa paid off his debt, and finally paid off his house, and it was doing real well. And I have 4 sisters, as you know, and I appreciate them all.
Telling my grandpa's life.
But and Grandpa kept fighting. He worked in a foundry, God bless him, to feed the family. And the place that he worked, the case company, they had this whole big area, which later in the years when people had enough cars, these turned into a parking lot. But prior to that, most guys got the bus and walked to work. You know, you got the bus and you rode the bus to work every day. If this whole big area was sectioned off into lots, I'd say, maybe 4 times the size of this room. And everybody that worked there could have a lot. And you could plant, and they sectioned it all off and staked it all out and everything else and numbered them all. And everybody went and had their gardens out there, and I used to go out there and help them all the time. And in a couple of years, he had a couple of extra lots, and you know, and he'd be working, and I'd go and help out a little bit before he got there. And then one day, Grandma told me to go take the cart, the push cart, go out and pick all the tomatoes that are left. And I said, okay. So I got the big push cart. Well, that push cart was all I could handle, and then some. But I got all the tomatoes picked, and Grandpa was not there yet. And I said, I know he's out of work by now. I saw all the other guys go home already. Where's Pa? He wasn't there yet. So I got to load it up as best I could, and I started pushing that thing on. It was just picking me up and putting me down, you know. It picked me up, and I'm gonna keep on going, keep on going. Finally, I got on a nice pavement road, and I was handling it a lot better, but not great. And all of a sudden, I look up, and here comes Grandpa, just about running down the street. Mad as hell, just running, you know, caught up to me, he said, "Give me that wagon." And I said, "Where you been?" He said, "Never mind." I said, "Okay, don't ask questions, that's what it means." What I found out was Grandma, he told Grandma he was gonna work late. Grandma forgot, and she told me to go eat tomatoes. So he didn't plan on be cooking tomatoes, picking tomatoes. And I went there to pick tomatoes, and he went home, you know, got a clean tomatoes, and looked around for me, and I wasn't there. The cart was there. The cart was gone, and he asked her. She said, "I sent him to pick tomatoes. I didn't know you were going to work so late." And he was hot. And we didn't talk. He was mad at me, but we didn't talk all the way home. And it was about 6, 7 blocks, 8 blocks to push that big cart. The wheels on it were, they stood about 4 foot high.
Oh, wow.
Out of each cart on the other side. It was a mess, but that's how he fed us an awful lot of times. All the meals come out of the gardens. And Grandma used to put forth all her efforts to canning them. And I'm sure you guys
Oh, we remember
possibly
that.
Remember those closets down in the basement?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The whole
where they had
wall
all
was
the
jars
fruit
of
crates and
tomatoes.
Jars of tomatoes and all
Yep.
that, you know. And
Because the ice cream freezer was down in there.
that's
All the
right.
wine was down in there. That's after Carpenter Street is when I have
And
the
the
best
garbage.
memory.
The garbage can full of flour was down
Oh, yeah.
With the mouse in it.
With the mouse in it.
There wasn't really, I don't remember a mouse
Yeah,
in
there
it.
was a mouse.
I say I blocked that.
That was when they both passed away. We went to empty out the
It's in the bottom, I think, or something.
meant to empty all the stuff, and they said, "Oh, flour in the yeah, divide it up." I said, "Okay." And I took 2 scoops full of, and a mouse sitting there. I
Ah.
said, "Hey, girls, you want this mouse too?" Throw out a whole damn thing out. Garbage can and all, and went into the dumpster.
I remember a trash can full of flour.
But we
I mean, it was a clean trash can for those of you watching this video.
Yeah.
It was a brand new that you went out and bought just for that
Yeah,
purpose.
yep,
you know.
yep. Anybody in the family knows that,
Yeah,
but anybody
yeah.
that's watching this that doesn't know.
But in the meantime, you know, Grandpa was trying to bring us up, and times are tough, and bootlegging was pretty heavy. Prohibition was on, and we had speakeasies, and you know, they making moonshine and stuff like that. And Grandpa got to know a few people, and I was.
What kind of people?
I don't remember. I don't.
I'm not gonna say.
That's not
I
for
don't
you to
know.
know.
I'm not old enough to. I was not old enough to even know about
They
it.
can't get you now.
He went
Yeah,
to work.
they're all gone.
Yeah, that's right. He went to work, and he ran a restaurant and a place for the truckers. They were hauling moonshine. And when they come through in the night, or whatever time they came through, he had to fix a meal for them, had it ready for them to eat. And he knew when they were coming, they'd call on the telephone, and he knew about a half hour before they'd be there. He always fixed them up something to eat. They all ate real good and kept on going, you know, during the night driving the roads. And he had to go down to Chicago to do that.
Yeah, who was his boss?
Huh?
Who was his boss?
You know, I don't know who his boss
He
was.
cooked for Al Capone.
Yeah, you know who his boss was.
But
Al Capone.
he was making $100 a week.
$100. Did you hear that on the video? $100 a week they paid him to cook during the Prohibition. He had a very powerful boss.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money back then.
But he had a more powerful wife. He says,
Yeah.
"Oh, you don't want you to go no more. I'm afraid somebody come and kill you." You know.
Well, yeah.
That's the way they lived those days and all. So he said, "Okay." You know, he came back home, and he stayed working at the factory. Went back to the factory and worked there some more. And as years passed by, we learned a little bit more about pot, about the mafia and the whole group. And I knew names. I know names. They don't mean a damn thing anymore because they're all dead and buried, shipped overseas.
Or swim with the fish.
Yeah, they send him back to the old country to bury him, didn't they?
This one guy, yeah, he died. He lived in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And he died.
Is that the Papa Jack?
No,
Okay.
Goomba Jack. No, he lived in
Oh,
Racine.
Goomba Jack.
But this guy lived in Fond du Lac. He owned some cheese factories. Well, one of the poor guy died, and he's probably in his 80s, 70s or something, you know, real late life. And they picked that and boxed him in the coffin, and they shipped the coffin to New York, and they got to New York, and the FBI, somebody stopped it. Don't send it. You can't send that over back to Italy. And then why, you know? Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So, but in the meantime, before this happened, Grandpa found out this man died. So he called me and he said, Frank, we gotta go to Fond du Lac Saturday. We gotta go to the funeral. No changes, we got to go. Okay, we'll go. Wednesday, he called me, Frank, we're not going to Fond du Lac. We're not gonna send flowers. No, we're not gonna send flowers, we're not gonna do nothing. Just forget about it. Don't worry about it. I said, what's the matter? They got the body in New York and they won't release it. It's there. I said, well, what are they gonna do with the body? I don't know, but they won't let it go. I don't know if they thought they had a bunch of drugs packed in the box or not. I have no idea.
Well, whatever that first time you told me that story, just like a couple months ago, I went online and looked it up, and that cheese factory still exists. Those people's names.
Yeah.
What was their name again? If anybody wants to look that up, I can't remember.
Mandela.
A Candela cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's still in operation,
Yeah.
and it tells the story about them coming over from a small town right outside of Palermo, and starting this, and that it's a family tradition and carried on. So that was really neat to look that up, and it kind of told the story and showed some pictures.
So
So
when
'Cause they're
Grandpa
still in operation.
wanted to introduce us, he and Uncle Frank found out about the family, the Candela family.
Okay.
You know, and they said, hey, we're gonna go up and visit them.
so it was some cousins of some sort, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was Candela's cousins,
Okay. Okay.
you know. And actually, well, by marriage or by law, they were Grandpa's cousins
Grandpa's
too.
cousins. Yeah. Okay.
But
Because
we went, and that's when Frank and I were together for one day. You know, that was one of the 2 days. And when Uncle Frank he went with his car, and I had to take my car. And I took Ma, and Frank took his father, and I said, we can all fit in one car. No, I drive my car, you drive your car. No, drive. So we drove up there, and we met the family. And it was a nice family. But the uncle, the oldest brother, was single. The youngest brother was married and had the children, and his wife did all the cooking, the meal. So we got up there, we sit down to eat, and they brought out a big dish of spaghetti. Oh, and sauce and fresh sauce and everything. And just meatballs, you name it was there. And they took all their plates away, and they came and sat down and put a steak in front of me that big.
Oh.
I had eaten this big bowl of spaghetti.
Because you didn't know that steak was coming.
You know, we had one meal and that was it. They didn't eat like they used to, you know. So, but I tried to eat some. I did my best to put some down, but it just. But anyway, then we had to take the girl to her school, where she was going to go to school, the youngster. She was going to an all-girls school, an all-girls Catholic school. She wasn't going to be led around by any boys around there, you know. The Gumbadis all took care of that. Real nice, so. And they donated to the right places. And she could go to any school she wanted to, providing the uncle said okay.
Okay. So the donations, right?
Yes.
It's a donation to make sure she was going to get